Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
Have you ever sat across from someone who never seems to crack? The plane hits turbulence and their hands don't even tighten on the armrest. Their world falls apart in a single phone call, and their voice stays level, almost gentle. A room erupts into an argument, and they simply lean back, arms folded, watching like it's a storm passing on the other side of a window. Your first instinct might be to think, that person feels nothing. Maybe even, they're a little cold, a little hard to reach. That's what almost everyone assumes. But I want to offer you a different way of seeing it, because the truth is almost the exact opposite of what it looks like on the surface. That stillness isn't emptiness. It's scar tissue. It's a kind of armor grown, one wound at a time, until it became thick enough that very little can get through it anymore. They aren't calm because they don't feel fear. They're calm because they've already lived through the worst version of this moment, in their mind or in their real life, more times than they can count. And something in the nervous system changes after that. It stops reacting on instinct and starts reading the room instead. Watching, calculating, sensing the truth underneath what people say before they've even finished the sentence. What looks like coldness is often the most sophisticated survival skill a person can develop. Today, I want to walk you through 10 quiet psychological signs that someone has carried far more than most people will ever know. And I'll be honest with you, by the end of this, you may recognize yourself in more than one of them. They feel other people's pain before anyone says a word. There's something that happens to people who have suffered. Their emotional radar gets rebuilt, sharper than before. Picture a rooftop birthday party. String lights, laughter, someone's playlist a little too loud, everyone holding a drink and leaning into each other's conversations. You're there too, and something heavy has been sitting on your chest all week. But you smile anyway. You laugh at the right moments. You've gotten good at the performance. Almost everyone in that crowd will believe the performance. They'll walk right past it. But there's always one person who won't. They'll find a quiet second, come stand a little closer, lower their voice, and ask, "Hey, is something actually going on with you?" They caught the half-second delay before your smile appeared. They noticed your eyes drift toward the door. They heard the silence you left between your jokes. It isn't a superpower. It's memory. They know exactly what it feels like to sit inside a crowd and scream on the inside while no one hears it, because they've lived it themselves. That old loneliness carved something permanent into them. I will not let another person feel as unseen as I once did. Their pain didn't harden them. It sharpened their sensitivity to everyone else's. They become the peacekeeper of every room. This one looks like kindness. It's actually something deeper. Imagine a family dinner. Everything's fine for the first 20 minutes. Food, small talk, someone's kid showing off a drawing. Then two relatives start disagreeing about something that used to be settled years ago. Voices rise half a notch. Forks stop moving. The air in the room changes. And there's always someone who steps in before it escalates. Not the loudest person at the table, the calmest one. "Hey, let's just pass the potatoes and revisit this later." Huh? A joke to soften it. A subject change. 10 minutes later, everyone's laughing again like nothing happened. At work, this is the person who quietly absorbs the impossible deadline so the team doesn't turn on each other. In friend groups, they're the mediator nobody appointed, but everyone relies on. Psychologists sometimes call this the fixer pattern. But for someone who has lived through real conflict, it often traces back to something called fawning, a nervous system survival response. Somewhere along the way, their brain learned conflict equals danger. And the safest place to stand is the one keeping everyone else calm. Here's the quiet tragedy in it, though. They'll hand you an umbrella in the middle of the storm and stand there getting soaked themselves. They ask everyone else, "Are you okay?" Almost no one thinks to ask them back. And if someone finally does, their answer is almost always the same. "I'm fine. Really?" Keeping the peace around them becomes their way of trying to feel peace inside, even though that kind of safety is never quite real. You cannot rest easy while you're constantly managing everyone else's weather. And that constant management keeps the body locked in high alert. Their body never fully stands down. When someone has lived for too long inside instability, An unpredictable household, a relationship where the ground kept shifting, or something more traumatic like conflict or displacement. Their nervous system can forget how to fully power off. Watch where they sit in a coffee shop, rarely with their back to the door. They'll choose the corner table, the one with a clear sight line to the entrance, almost without thinking about it. Walk into any unfamiliar space with them, and you'll notice their eyes doing a quiet sweep. Where's the exit? What's the quickest way out? Who in this room feels unpredictable? They startle at sounds most people don't even register. A chair scraping too fast, a raised voice, 2 tables over, a door closing harder than expected. Their pulse jumps before their mind even catches up. Even years later, lying in their own bed in a home that is genuinely safe, sleep doesn't always come easily. A sound from outside can snap them fully awake in an instant. People around them might say, "Relax, you're safe now." Not realizing that for someone who has lived this way, safety doesn't always feel believable. Their mind learned a hard lesson. Peace can be interrupted without warning. Trauma researchers describe this constant scanning as one of the nervous system's core defense strategies. Not a flaw, just a mind still doing the job it was trained to do. And when your body is always braced for impact, it changes how you let people close to you. Trust has to be earned in installments. You might know someone for a decade. You might be the person they call first when something good happens. And still, there's a door inside them that never fully opens, even for you. They're not withholding out of arrogance. Put yourself where they've stood. If the people who were supposed to protect them were also the ones who hurt them most, if every time they opened up, it came back to bite them, then walls stop being a character flaw and start being common sense. It isn't coldness. It's fear, dressed up as composure. They would rather be slightly harder to reach than hand someone the exact blueprint that could break them again. For them, trust isn't given freely. It's something built slowly, tested through actions, proven over time rather than promised in words. But living in a state of constant caution has a cost. When you can't fully lean on anyone, you end up running every scenario in your head by yourself. Their mind is always 3 steps ahead. People who've weathered a lot of hardship often become reluctant experts at reading between the lines. They'll reread a text message 5 times. Why didn't they respond right away? Did I say something wrong? They'll replay a 2-second look from their manager. Was that annoyance? Are cuts coming? They build out contingency plans nobody asked for. Plan A, Plan B, and the worst case version they hope they'll never need. There's a line in pop culture that captures this perfectly. The idea that if you brace for disappointment, it can never actually catch you off guard. People who haven't been through much laugh at that line as dark humor. People who have been through a lot go quiet because they recognize themselves in it completely. This is a real defense mechanism. If you rehearse the worst outcome enough times, the real thing loses its power to shock you. Overthinking becomes their way of gripping the steering wheel on a road that once felt completely out of control. The price, of course, is exhaustion. And exhaustion always goes looking for one thing. They crave the ordinary more than the exciting. After years of emotional, financial, or relational turbulence, what a person wants most usually isn't adventure. It's boredom. Beautiful, uneventful boredom. They find real comfort in routine. The same walk every morning, the same order at the same cafe, a job with predictable rhythms, a home that stays tidy because tidy feels controllable. To someone who hasn't weathered much, that kind of repetition might sound like a small life. To someone who has survived real chaos, it feels like paradise. Stability becomes their anchor, keeping them from drifting back out into open water. They've learned something most people never have to learn. A day where nothing happens is a genuinely lucky day. And to protect that hard-won stability, they need something else too. Room to breathe alone. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's where they recharge. Don't mistake this for misanthropy or depression. It's neither. Think of their mind like a phone running a dozen background apps at once, staying alert, reading people, calculating outcomes, all day long. The battery drains fast. Time alone is the charger. Solitude is where they set the mask down. No one to read, no one to manage, no one to keep comfortable. They can spend an entire afternoon with a book, take a long walk with no destination, or just lie in a quiet room with music and nowhere to be. For someone who has carried a lot, being alone isn't isolation. It's the one place healing can actually happen without an audience. And out of years spent managing life largely on their own, something else tends to form. They rarely ask for help, even when they need it. These are the people who move apartments by themselves, who troubleshoot their own car problems with a YouTube tutorial before calling anyone, who go to doctor's appointments alone and sort out money problems quietly without mentioning the stress to a soul. Offer to help, and you'll often hear the same soft deflection. It's okay, I've got it. It isn't stubbornness. Somewhere along the way, asking for help came with a cost. Rejection, humiliation, or disappointment when someone they counted on didn't show up. So they drew a quiet conclusion. The one person who will never abandon me is myself. That independence becomes a badge of honor. It carries them through. But it can also become a very lonely kind of prison. One where they carry the full weight of their life without ever setting it down, even for an afternoon. And that weight tends to settle somewhere heavier than the to-do list. There's a quiet sadness under the surface. From the outside, everything looks fine. They show up to work, laugh in group chats, post the vacation photos, seem like they've got it together. Because in most ways, they do. But eyes don't perform as well as the rest of the face. Catch them in an unguarded moment, and you won't see joy sitting there. You'll see something more like fog, the particular tiredness of someone who has walked a genuinely long road. Once you've seen certain truths about people and about life, there's no unseeing them. Robin Williams built a career out of making the entire world laugh until they cried. And for decades, he seemed like the very definition of joy. Very few people knew, while he was alive, how much he was privately carrying, including, it was later revealed, a serious neurological illness layered on top of everything else. His story is a hard but important reminder. The widest smiles sometimes sit directly on top of the deepest sadness. People who've survived a lot often become exactly this, determined to hand out the laughter they once desperately needed themselves, so someone else doesn't have to taste that particular bitterness. But this isn't where their story ends. If it were, it would be a cruelly unfinished one. They turn the wreckage into wisdom. After the breakdowns, the losses, the nights that wouldn't end, most of them don't stay down. They get back up. And more than that, they often rise higher than where they started. Psychologists have a name for this: post-traumatic growth. The hardship doesn't just wound them, it reshapes them into something sturdier. History is full of proof. Think of Abraham Lincoln. A life stitched together from loss after loss. His mother gone young, the woman he loved gone too soon, business failures, election losses, and a depression he battled privately for years. And yet those same wounds are widely credited with giving him the depth, patience, and compassion that would carry a fractured nation through its darkest chapter. Or think of Steve Jobs, publicly forced out of the very company he built. A humiliation he later called one of the bitterest experiences of his life. Instead of letting it end him, he used it as the launch point for some of his most creative years, eventually returning to reshape an entire industry. He said, later, that losing everything gave him back the lightness of being a beginner again. People who've been through too much carry a kind of knowledge no classroom can teach, the wisdom of having survived, and the strange gift of being able to find a sliver of light, even while still standing in the dark. Sometimes the deepest wound really does become the deepest strength. If you recognized even one of these 10 signs in yourself, or in someone you love, I want you to know. You're not broken. You're not too much. You're someone who survived something, and it shaped you into someone remarkable. Tell me in the comments which sign hit closest to home. Someone else reading it tonight needs to know they're not the only one quietly carrying all of this. And if this found you at the right moment, stay with us. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next conversation. Because healing is easier when you don't walk it alone. I'll see you in the next one. I am reclaiming my peace.